This is Dear Strategy, episode 130. Welcome to another episode of Dear Strategy, where we answer all of your questions about product and business strategy. Real lessons from real strategies in real companies, just like yours. Welcome back, strategy creators, to another great episode. This is episode 130. And on today's episode, I want to talk about something that came up in a strategy that I was working on not too long ago. It's come up several times, honestly, but this is one that was pretty interesting. And I thought I would share the experience with you here today and see if you can get some tidbits of information out of it. So the topic is differentiating between a product strategy and a go-to-market plan. Kind of what are the differences? Are they the same thing? You know, kind of how do we use one versus another? And the reason I think this is important is there is definitely some confusion around this, right? So I'll start off with this story, is that I was hired by a company in the digital space. This was actually a software company, and they were looking for product strategy, right? Product strategy training, what they thought to be product strategy training. Now, I'll start off by saying that the type of strategy training that I typically do, whether it's a product strategy or a business strategy, I always start off with what I'll refer to as a product business strategy. So the type of framework that I teach, the type of classes that I generally give is about putting together an overarching business plan or business strategy for whatever it is that you're managing. So if you're managing at a corporate level, then you're going to put together that kind of a strategy. If you're managing at a business unit level, then it's that. At a small business strategy, it's, at that level. And then a product strategy, you would be looking at your product business. And all of them use the same basic process, which is first taking a look at what's going on in three areas of customers, competitors, and your own company, taking all that information, using it to create goals around what it is you're trying to achieve, look at options around how you could be able to achieve that, and ultimately put together some type of an action plan that usually consists of a couple of different layers, starting off with high-level initiatives and then kind of breaking down into, lower-level actions and roadmaps with investments. And all of that becomes your kind of business plan. So whether you're doing that at a corporate level or a company level or a product level, it's all around putting together that business strategy. Okay. So whenever someone hires me for the purpose of putting together a product strategy, I'm going to start with that assumption, is that they're treating their product as a business and they want to put together a strategy for that product business. And the reason I start with that assumption isn't because it's always true, but because if you don't have that for your product, then you can't put together a lower level strategy, right? Or a more granular plan. So you always have to start with kind of the big picture. What is it that you're trying to achieve for your product business? What are the goals? What are the initiatives? How are you going to actually make all of those dreams come true for your product line? And only then can you start putting together the more granular actions around things like features and roadmap items and technology roadmaps and things of that nature. So I always want to start with the big picture plan. If I find that companies have that big picture plan, but what they're really trying to get help with are putting together kind of that feature roadmap type of a strategy for their product, then okay, we can engage at that kind of more granular level. But let's make sure you have that first piece in place to start with. So this one company that I went into that asked for a product strategy, they were, of course, not talking about the higher level business plan. They were talking about the more granular feature selection type strategy. So in this case, because it was a software company, they were using an agile process. They had a backlog of features and they wanted help in prioritizing those features. So essentially some type of a class in helping prioritize the backlog, right? And putting together more of a roadmap and, doing use case scenarios and things of that nature to be able to put together these more granular product roadmap plans. And I said, look, I can help you with that, but it's not much of a class, to be honest with you, because the reason that you don't have success at that level isn't because you don't have a process for prioritizing your roadmap. It's probably because you don't have an overarching strategy for your product business. So without that overarching strategy for your product business, you don't know how to choose features to put on your roadmap. You don't know how to choose features that you want to take from your roadmap and turn them into products because you don't have that overarching strategy. So essentially everything is very reactive, right? Whatever customers want, you put onto your roadmap, and then you choose based on what you think you want to do or what the last customer said or who screamed the loudest. But you're not really following some overall strategy. You're not really following a competitive plan as to what it is you want to do. So even though I can give you a process for prioritizing your roadmap, you're not going to be able to do it unless you have that overarching, what I would call a product strategy, right? And so they agreed with that and ended up doing strategy training and putting together product strategies. And although some of the product managers were kind of hesitant when we went into that engagement, they came out of it saying, oh, yeah, I see why we need this now, right? I see why we need this kind of product business strategy, this overall overarching plan. So that was very successful. And then once they have that overarching product strategy, now kind of choosing features for your roadmap and selecting and prioritizing, that is almost second nature, right? It's easy because you have that overarching plan. So to the kind of question that I want to talk about on the show, or topic I want to talk about on the show, when I'm referring to a product strategy, I am not talking about how to put together a product roadmap. I am not talking about how to prioritize a roadmap. And I am not talking about how to choose features that you can develop into products. I'm not even talking about how to think about features or ideate around features. None of that, in my opinion, is where product strategy really lives. Product strategy is your overarching product business plan. What are you trying to accomplish with your product? Who are you trying to compete with? What kind of customers do you want to go after? What do you want to do with those customers? What needs do you want to satisfy? That's going to help to guide your ideas. That's going to help to guide your roadmap. And believe me, when you have that overarching product strategy, the way I'm defining it, your roadmap is going to define itself. Okay. So that's one thing that I would want to keep in mind. Now, with that established, and if you agree with that definition, there is still a need to take your product strategy and execute it. And although the product strategy will lay out high-level initiatives and high-level actions, your product strategy is not meant to populate a project schedule, right? It's not meant to lay out every single action and tactic that you're going to take in the marketplace. The idea is to put a plan together to guide all of those more granular actions, but the product strategy probably won't define them. So when you are trying to put together a plan for that, that's where I would typically refer to a go-to-market plan, right? Meaning that you need to know how I'm going to take this strategy and put it into the marketplace. How am I actually going to execute this strategy in the marketplace? And so when I look at a go-to-market plan, I see a much more granular plan, and I see it as something that's going to draw upon your product strategy, but it's going to get more detailed, okay? And it's really going to detail out how do I take that strategy and execute it in the marketplace. So a good go-to-market plan, in my opinion, I would say, has several main elements to it. It starts with who are the target customers that you want to go after. And that should be more or less defined by your product strategy. Now, your product strategy is probably going to lay out high-level customer segmentation and then choose at a high level which customer segments you want to go after. Your go-to-market plan may take it one step more granular than that, right? So start off with those market segments and customer segments you want to target, but maybe you want to break that down into getting further information about those customer segments, right? What are the personas? What are the user stories? Who are they? Maybe there are subsegments that go along with those higher level customer segments. All of that would be pretty much laid out and defined in what I would consider to be a go-to-market plan. So that's kind of the center of that plan. Then around that center, you want to define very clearly what is the value proposition for the product that you're trying to go to market with, and how are you going to position that product against the competitors in the minds of those target customers that you define. So all of that now kind of creates a really clear picture of who you're going to go to market with and what you're going to go to market with and how you're going to do that against any other choices that they might have to make in the marketplace. Once you have that laid out, now you can start defining more granular actions around the 4 Ps of marketing, right? Which is also referred to as the marketing mix. We've talked about that a lot on this show, but that's product, price, promotion, and place. And each one of those 4 Ps will have specific and granular roadmaps to it. So on the product side, what are the specific product features that you want to put into the marketplace over some period of time? On the pricing side, how do you want to price those features, and how do you want to price that product, and how do you want that price to change over a period of time? On the promotional side, how specifically are you going to promote this product to the target customers using the value proposition and positioning that you laid out? And then on the placement side, how are you going to make those products available? What specific distributors are you going to use? What channel partners are you going to use? How are you going to make this available to the marketplace? So now you have a comprehensive and very granular plan tying back to the overall product strategy. The product strategy, again, is going to be high level. Here are the goals. Here are the big initiatives we want to accomplish. Here's the investments that we're going to need. But now we want to take that and turn it into a very granular roadmap. That's what I would use a go-to-market plan for. And so those two things coexist. They collaborate, right? They work with one another very well. And the reason I like doing it this way is because the product strategy kind of sits at the top. It doesn't change on a very frequent basis. You might have to make some modifications to it, but by and large, it's pretty consistent. Whereas your go-to-market plan, now that's going to have a lot more detail to it, which means that those details are going to change and pivot a lot, right? So as you go into the marketplace, you see that something doesn't work, you can change parts of your go-to-market plan, but it's not changing your overarching strategy. So that's how those two things, I think, really match together really well. Now, if you buy into that definition, right, and that difference between kind of a go-to-market plan and a product strategy, then another thing we want to talk about with respect to the go-to-market plan is what it's called. Now, I am fine calling it a go-to-market plan, by the way. That's kind of the standard terminology. It's what people understand. It's fine. The only problem I have is that go-to-market plan kind of implies that it's a one-and-done deal. And as a result of that, a lot of people will use the term go-to-market synonymously with product launches, meaning that that's the only time they put together a go-to-market plan, when they're first going to market. But if you think about it from a lifecycle standpoint, again, every product is going to go through its natural lifecycle, right? Which is going to include introduction, growth, maturity, decline, and then eventually exit. You're actually going to market at every point in that lifecycle. You're constantly going to market all the time because your product is always available after launch. So why would you only put together a plan when you're launching a product when actually all those things we talked about in the go-to-market plan, product, price, promotion, and place, they have to change dynamically as your product moves through its life cycle. So in fact, a go-to-market plan is not a one-and-done deal. It's something that is continuous, and it's something that continuously has to be updated until you decide to exit your product from the marketplace. So the way that I look at this is that your product strategy is going to be dynamic. It's going to be longer term. It's not going to be something that changes every day, but it is going to be updated over longer periods of time. And then beneath your product strategy is your go-to-market plan. That's going to lay out your very specific tactical actions. And that's going to be something that is changed on a more frequent basis and updated on a more frequent basis. Makes sense, right? Because those actions are going to be more granular. That means that some of them are going to work, some of them are not going to work, and you're going to need to dynamically update those things without necessarily having to make big major changes to your product strategy. So again, remember, go-to-market plan, something that's continuous. Now, what about the contents of a go-to-market plan versus a product strategy, because I've named some things that you might think should be in your product strategy. I talked about your target customers. I talked about a value proposition. I talked about positioning. I talked about the marketing mix, or the 4 Ps of marketing. And all of those things are things that you'd say, well, shouldn't they be in a product strategy as well? The answer is yes, to some extent. So when I teach product strategy, I'm not focusing in on value proposition and positioning. I'm not focusing in on granular level of customer segmentation. I'm not focusing in on, granular tactics within the 4 Ps of marketing. Instead, what I'm focusing on there is I'm focusing on the high level stuff, right? Who are the high level customer segments that you want to go after? What are the high level needs that you're trying to address from those customer segments? Who are the competitors, and how are you differentiating yourself from those competitors? And then finally, on the marketing mix, what are the high level initiatives that you want to embrace that will inform the marketing mix? So in many ways, rather than your product strategy laying out the value proposition, the positioning, the granular target customers, and the granular actions of the marketing mix, I like to say that the product strategy is informing those things, not necessarily outlining them in detail, but rather informing the go-to-market plan, which is where you'll actually define exactly what those things are. And so that's the way that I like to put these things together. Why? Again, because those things are more granular. Let's just take value proposition, for example. Value proposition is something that's going to be different for every target customer segment that you go after. So your product strategy isn't necessarily going to lay out that level of detail, right? Your product strategy is going to talk about who are the segments, what are the big needs you want to go after, and what are the big initiatives you want to take. Your go-to-market plan, on the other hand, is going to get deeper than that. It's going to say who specifically are the segments I want to go after, and what's the value proposition that I have in each of those segments. It's not one value proposition. It's a value proposition to each of those segments. Same thing with the positioning, right? And then same thing with the marketing mix action items. So that's why I say your product strategy, that's not really the place that you're going to lay out all the details of value proposition, positioning, and even the marketing mix. That's the place you're going to lay out your big high-level business plan so that those other things can be defined later in your go-to-market plan. So if we're going to take the 3 kind of big takeaways from this episode, and like I said, I like to summarize these episodes with some takeaways that you could actually go and do something with. Here's what they would be. First is that your product strategy and your go-to-market plan are 2 separate things. Product strategy is the overall product business plan that lays out what are the big goals you want to accomplish, what are the big initiatives you want to embrace, who are the big target customers you want to go after, what are the big needs that you want to address. Your high-level product business plan, and what, of course, investments are you going to need to help you do that over the long term. Your go-to-market plan is a much more granular plan of how you're going to go to market, and what specific actions are you going to take with respect to value proposition, positioning, and then the 4 Ps of marketing. So 2 very distinctly different things working together, but sitting at different levels in your product business. The second key takeaway is that a go-to-market plan is not synonymous with a launch plan. It's not a one and done thing, right? That you put together once and then you never think about again. A go-to-market plan instead is a continuously evolving plan that follows your product lifecycle. So it outlines, your value proposition, your positioning, the granular target customers you want to go after. And then, of course, all of the actions you want to take, the roadmap actions you want to take in the marketing mix, product, price, promotion, and place. And that's going to be dynamic. It's going to be ever updated, ever changing, and aligned with your life cycle. So definitely not synonymous with a launch plan. The third key takeaway has to do with the content of your product strategy and your go-to-market plan. And more specifically, if you're looking for your product strategy to define exactly what your value proposition is with each of your target customers and define things like your positioning statements in each of your markets and define exactly what your technology roadmap needs to be and what your backlog item needs to be and things of that nature, you're probably thinking about product strategy the wrong way. Again, your product strategy is your overall product business plan. What is it that you're trying to accomplish? How are you going to accomplish that? And what big investments are you going to need? And then you save all of the more granular detail for your go-to-market plan. And that separation is going to allow you to have a little more space to plan out those more granular actions. And it's also going to allow you to have a distinction so that when you do execute your plan, you can have the flexibility of changing some of those more granular details without necessarily having to change your overarching product strategy. So hopefully all of that is helpful. Now, I know a lot of that might be a little difficult to follow with just my voice. So the good news is there's plenty of places online that you can go to get more information on this and more clarification. The first one, of course, is just go out to dearstrategy.net, go to the blog link, and you should find there a blog post. I do a blog post that goes along with every one of these episodes. Sometimes there's a little bit of a lag between when I write the blog post and when I release the episode, but usually they catch up pretty well. So go out, check that out, and I'll be outlining some of these points on the blog post that goes along with this specific episode, which is episode 130. The other place that you can go to get some information is, of course, my training business. So if you go to strategygeneration.com, which is the website for Strategy Generation Company, you will be able to find more information about these concepts that we're talking about. So to find this information, there's a couple places you can go. First, you can go to the training section of that website. Just go ahead and click on the training link. You're going to see a section for workshops, and then you're going to see another section for skills classes. Under the workshop section, you'll find a product strategy generation workshop. If you go there, that'll give you a link to download the product strategy generation framework that we use. And then under the skills classes, if you go to the market planning class, that's where we talk about putting together this, what we call a market plan, but is also the same as a go-to-market plan. And so there's a framework that you could download from that link that kind of explains the elements of that plan. High level, but at least it'll give you the contrast and the difference. You could also just go to strategygeneration.com/downloads, and then all of the tools that we have available for free, you could download from there, and those frameworks are among those tools. So you'll be able to get some information there. And of course, if you're interested in possibly engaging a strategy generation company to help you with some of these concepts, maybe do some training for your teams or yourself inside of your company, please just go ahead and contact us. You can go ahead and click the contact link from that site, send us an email, tell us what you're looking for or you're interested in, and we'll get back to you. And when I say we'll get back to you, I will get back to you. I am the one that you will be talking to. So if you want to get in touch with me specifically, just go ahead and use that contact link. I'll get back in touch. We'll set up a time that we could talk. Let's see how I can help you and how we might be able to impart some of these concepts inside of your company. And while you're doing all of that, don't forget to make time for the plan. And we will see you back here on another episode of Dear Strategy. Thanks for joining.
Thank you for listening to Dear Strategy with Bob Caparelli. To learn more or to submit a question to be featured on our show, please visit us at dearstrategy.net.